Hi, Lisa Marie Kosis, founder of Global One Health. In this video, I'm going to talk about the push-up. Perhaps one of my personal favorite exercises. I really love push-ups. They are a fantastic exercise for body weight training. So if you have access to no equipment whatsoever, you can certainly do a push-up. It's a fantastic exercise, as I mentioned, for loading the upper extremities, building strength in the shoulder girdle. You need to have a degree of stability, right? You have to really be able to do a solid plank in order to be able to do a clean, solid push-up. So if you cannot or have not mastered the ability to hold a straight arm plank, then you really aren't quite ready, and the joint structures may not be ready to do the actual push-up. So please, as I always say, listen to your body. I'm going to show you the basic push-up first, and of course, I always address different modifications if you need to regress the exercise and you're not strong enough to do the exercise as it's designed to do in its most straightforward basic form. That is what the regressions and modifications are there, so that you can build strength safely so that one day you can actually get down on the ground and do the actual push-up. Push-up, as I mentioned, is a great body weight exercise, no equipment needed, but it's also a great core exercise. So it's a full body activation. You want to be mindful of that as well, thinking of activating the core, the glutes, the leg muscles, and just the whole body overall. So let's get into the plank position. I'm going to show you what the push-up looks like. I have broken down in a couple of the videos how to do a basic plank and how to introduce your body to doing a basic straight arm plank. So please make sure that you have at least looked at those, or that you can do a straight arm plank before you attempt the push-up, because it is more load on the joint structures. Positioning and form are very important, but also showed some modifications for assisted planks as well. So you can still do a push-up in an assisted position to make it easier. The ground will be the more difficult variation. So from a side view, when I'm getting into my push-up, one way I talked about in the video, I like to segue getting clients from a quadruped position, right, extending one leg out so they can get into that plank, right? So I don't like to wait till I'm up in my plank to start thinking about how to engage my body, right? Because then I've already put myself under much more load, especially on the wrist and ankle and foot joints. So being mindful about your setup is so important. So pre-activate. That's such an important phrase you want to be thinking about. And I learned from Dr. Emily in her foot certification, when you're doing those foot core sequencing drills I talked about early on, it's getting the brain to tell the core and the foot structures and the other structures of the body to engage before the movement. You will always set yourself up for more success if you engage the musculature prior to doing the actual exercise movement. So right from the get-go, right, I'm thinking of gripping the floor. I talked about all these cues in my other videos involving weight bearing. The GFE, cross point, and crawl video talks about the activation of your hand and finger muscles, which is very, very valuable when you're actually doing a push-up. You want every part of your body to be able to push you away from the ground. So again, setting yourself up for the maximum success will also help to keep you safe, as well as getting you stronger. So you're gripping the floor, you're corkscrewing the arms, you're packing the shoulders. From this point, I'm already engaging my core. I'm going to extend one leg straight out. My leg muscles and glutes are already engaged. Notice I'm in a slight posterior tilt. I don't want to be in my push-up in an arch position. I will lose a little bit of activation in my core and glutes and possibly cause a little bit of compression in the discs. If you start to feel like your lower back tighten up, that might be the cause of it when you're doing planks or push-ups. So I've already fully engaged before that second foot hits the ground. Now, the basic classic push-up, I simply want to lower my body down in one smooth motion and go straight back up. Notice there's no deviation. I do not want to lead with my head and lead my butt up in the air. That is wrong. That is not a proper classic push-up. Nor do I want to start to let my hips drop first, right? And then, right, my legs, thighs should not touch the floor in a classic push-up. So I'm like a board, very rigid, very solid. And I simply think about not just going into the ground, but I'm doing a row. And then I push myself up. So what I mean by that is, for a quick back view, as I go into the push-up, yes, my elbows are bending, but I want to use my back. So while a push-up is considered a chest exercise, there is very much, and I really want to talk about this, because when you're bench pressing for powerlifting, you have to use your back when doing a bench press. A push-up is just that exact same thing, but body weight, right? A lot of people cannot bench press their body weight, so push-ups are very challenging. So don't be stressed out or upset if you cannot get on the ground and do a bodyweight push-up. You have to work your way towards it and build strength safely and properly, right? But please keep in mind, as you are going into the push-up, right, I'm retracting my scapula. So as I get closer and closer to the ground, I don't want to yield into gravity. If my muscles relax on the negative or the eccentric phase of my push-up, I'm not going to have the strength I need when I get to the bottom to push myself out of it. So take advantage of the negative, right? Own that position. You're corkscrewing, you're gripping the ground, and you want to pull those shoulder blades together. So at the bottom of my plank, or bottom of my push-up, I should look like this in my back. Notice my shoulders are not up to my ears. I'm pulling my shoulders down, they're retracted. And then as I start to push, right, I have my back muscles recruited, and that's going to give you so much more power. A push-up is not an arm exercise. Don't rely on your arms to do all the work. It's not fair to your joints, in the shoulders, elbows, and wrists especially. It's a full body exercise, so use all of the body, right? So that is what a classic push-up looks like. Now, if you cannot do that, a modified variation, so long as that you can actually keep yourself supported in the upper body here, right, is simply to bring the knees down to do what is called a kneeling push-up. So I'm in the same position. Everything else is the same. Grip the floor, corkscrew the arms, core engaged, glutes engaged. Again, I'm in that slight posterior pelvic tilt because that enables my abs and glutes to fire a little bit more so to support my body in the movement. Same setup. I go down, controlling myself down. I get too close to the ground and come up. The other thing is, I didn't mention, try not to let your head lead the way. I see a lot of people, they go down and they're leading with their head. So if you see this angle of my spine, it's not correct. And that could put a little bit more stress on your neck muscles and neck joints as well. So you want to just lower your body so the face and chest are coming to the ground simultaneously and then push up. So that is a modified variation. If you can't do the straight leg push-up, simply bring the knees down. Now, if you cannot get out of the push-up to get up from it, then just do the negatives. So we're going to talk about that next. The negative is the eccentric or the lengthening phase of the muscles. It is actually the easier of the two movements regarding the two directions. So while coming out of the push-up is harder, I actually build my strength in the negative or the going into the push-up. So for example, if I'm on my knees and I'm in a good, if I can hold this position really well, right? So if you can own this position nicely, you start push-ups by just doing the negatives. That is a great approach to build strength so that one day you actually can push yourself up out. But really take advantage of the negative, right? So I'm in this position. My goal is to lower myself down as slowly as I can. The slower you go, the more strength you build, right? And then if you can't get up, you just simply reset, come up however you need to. You get back into the position. Make sure you're fully engaged, core, glutes, arms back, and then you slowly lower yourself down. As I get deeper into the push-up, I'm trying to use my muscles more. I'm gripping the floor more with my hands. I'm trying to use more core, more glutes. I get as close to the ground as I can. Then if I can still maintain this position and keep everything engaged and I'm properly activated in my muscles, I'm holding at the bottom, and then I simply come down and just get back up, right? So that is how you take an approach, is you work on the negative first. So your sequential pattern would be the kneeling variation first. So start with the kneeling variation. Start just owning this position in the plank. If this is good, you progress to a slow eccentric down, right? And come up, and then you work on just holding at the bottom, keeping tension. So even here, whether my knees are down or my knees are up, I'm pushing the ground away as hard as I can, and then I rest when I need to and come up. So start with the slow eccentrics on the knees. Practice experimenting, holding the plank in the push-up in the deepest position. And then you can start to, from there, see if you can push yourself up, right? And that's how you would approach negatives, pausing at the bottom, and then trying to push yourself up. When you can do all of those in a really solid way, then work on the leg extended version because it's a lot more load on your wrists. So don't jump ahead before your body's ready. Now, if you can't do the variations on the ground, I talked about assisted planks, you take the same approach to a push-up. So if I'm going to use my table here as a prop, right, I have a less steep angle here, so I'm going to have, my head's going to get a little bit cut off, but it's going to be easier than being on the ground. But notice I'm still engaging as if I was completely on the ground. Again, my same approach, I just simply lower, right? Just see if you can do the negative. Don't even worry about the push-up. And then you just step in. So that's how you approach an assisted push-up. So now you're getting into that straight arm position, but the straight arm, straight leg angle. And you simply practice controlling yourself down slowly. And then you practice, can you hold in this position? And then don't wait till you collapse. You step forward and reset. Slow negative. That's where you build your strength. Still using my back muscles, my core, my glutes. Step and hold. And when you don't need to hold any longer, to step back, then you simply try. One day you're able to actually do the push-up that way. So that is how you can approach it, right? You can start with an assisted piece of, I do recommend, again, something solid, sturdy, that's not going to collapse under your wrists, something that's not going to move out from underneath you, nothing that's not stable. You don't want to, safety first. So when you have something solid, furniture, a shelf, a ledge, dresser that you can use, if this is too low, you can take a higher dresser. Remember, the higher the angle, the easier the push-up, meaning closer to vertical that you are. So you can even start even higher, right? But just practice owning the plank, then practice slow coming in is step 2. Then see if you can hold in the deepest position of the push-up is step 3. And then pushing yourself back, but start from a higher angle to be safe, and then progressively work your way down till you are actually on the ground. And make sure as you go deeper into the push-up, the muscle activation in the body is you need to increase it. So if you're starting at a work capacity of effort, maybe a 4, as you go deeper into it, you want to feel like you're working 5, 6, 7, 8 deeper, more muscle activation. So by the time you get to that deepest part of the push-up, your musculature is engaged to its maximum to give you the force energy that you need within to push yourself away from the ground. So give some of those variations a try. Again, as I mentioned, listen to your body, listen to your joints, don't force. The elbow position, just to mention, this is very important when you're doing push-ups. You do not want your elbows to be laterally to the sides, right? You're not looking to get a push-up with that side view. You don't bench press that way. You don't do dumbbell presses that way, any kind of chest press, right? You want to be corkscrewed and packed, as I talked about in the shoulders, right? So the scapula are anchored down. There's a ton of work in your back musculature, right? Because the back is what's supporting. You don't want to be collapsed, right? So when you're doing that push-up, you don't just let everything go at any point in it, right? So don't continue the reps if you cannot maintain engagement everywhere. Your glutes, your core, your back, your hands, right? Every joint and every body part is contributing to work together as a unit so that your whole body is evenly distributed and working throughout all of the structures. Will keep you safe, which is, of course, of the utmost importance. So I hope that proves helpful. Again, and once you can own and master the plank and the push-up, then there's so many modifications of push-ups, but you have to be able to do a basic assisted push-up and then progress to the ground before you can start doing some of these other more fancy and exciting variations of push-ups. So own the basics first, and that will always keep you safe.